but you're on mute.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon from Nigeria. It's raining, so my network may go a bit woozy sometimes, so you will excuse me. Hi, Anita. Hi. Okay. So it's raining over here, so we may have a little bit challenge with the network, but I plan to, make it keep going. And welcome to this discussion here. This about the third or fourth time we are having this since COVID had made it almost impossible for us to have the on-site discussions we usually have this kind of situation. But good for technology, we can all meet online. So you're welcome. We've held this about 2 or 3 times since COVID, and we've had interesting discussions. So today we are discussing about families, how they cope during emergency situations. And I'm hoping that we shall all participate. Amma has kindly agreed to, I'm going to moderate, but Amma will be doing the introduction of the presenters. So presenters have different times allocated to them. I understand how we are all constrained for time. So I'm going to ensure that we, as much as possible, try to keep to the time. My talk is very brief. So when the presenters begin to speak, I have prepared a little sketch, so when you have just 3 minutes, I will show you 3 minutes. That's all you have to speak for. Then if it's 2 minutes or 1 minute, I'll show you. Then when your time is up, I'm going to show you this. I wouldn't want to cut anybody short, but because I know we all have so much you want to share. But again, since we are going to share this online, so I believe that at the end, even those things you miss out on sharing, we have them either in the slides you have shared with us, and we can share them online. Hello, Anna. Can you please take over the phone? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Can you all hear me well? Okay.
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you very much. So I'm Paula Carvalho. I'm from Brazil, but actually I'm working in Portugal in a PPC, Associação do Porto da Paralisia Cerebral. And we've been working together to construct this documentation review. So John, if you can start the presentation, please.
One moment.
Thank you very much. So what you try to bring to you today is just a small documentation review, because the discussions about what kind of response we have specific for people with cerebral palsy, and we made this documentation review in the recent documentation, namely since 2015, referring to the humanitarian response globally and specifically in relation to people with disability and another kind of vulnerabilities. So can you pass, please, John, the next one? The first issue that you faced was to define what kind of scenario you can face. So if you face a crisis or conflict situations. So the most important thing here is to highlight how people with disability have this disproportional risk of abandonment, violence, death, insecurity, and lack of access to healthcare. So we make this very clear to us how you can highlight the importance of this good response on this scenario. So another thing that's important to have in mind is the specification. For example, the different age, gender, ethnics, and another vulnerability. So we made this review focusing on the documentation that you have right now and how it works or not to our scenario. So the most important institution and organization in the international level was the Council of Europe and European Parliament. They had really good guidelines. The Handicap International, the Red Cross and Red Cross Crescent Societies. This one, of course, I think everyone knows, because in the humanitarian crisis, they are always on the field. So it's very important one for us. And the other ones, the World Health Organization, and the others are the group of the ONU. So we have here a specific one, like the Office for Disaster and Risk Reduction. And the most important for us in documentation is this interagency standing committee that made a small group to organize these issues. So the namely is was Office for Disaster Risk Reduction and Migration and Refugees. And after this documentary analysis, you often that the document that seems most complete to us was the guidelines named Inclusion of Persons with Disability in Humanitarian Actions from this Interagency Stand Committee. And they started this document saying that was a set up task team on inclusion of persons with disability in humanitarian actions, and try to develop these guidelines through a consultative, participatory, and inclusive process. So this document is very important because they prepared different response for each moment of the crisis. So they try to reflect the input of more than 600 stakeholders across the disability, humanitarian, and development sectors. So another thing important from here is this kind of response that you have. So in this document, the humanitarian setting separate these two parts in nature of crisis, if it's natural or man-made crisis like a war or conflicts, and if it is located in an urban or rural or remote island, and whether it's rapid, slow onset or protected crisis. So they divide this document in three parts: the preparedness, response, and recover. And we decide to focus here in the immediate response. So, John, please, the next. Okay, so here our first question was responded. The answer was we do not need to focus on the type of the crisis, but how you can respond to this. So, of course, you have a lot of difference between conflicts and natural disasters. But for us, as people that need this response as soon as possible, all the themes are the same. So we have the access to health, the psychosocial care, food assistance, food and water assistance that you put in the same theme, and the hygienic service. And for each one, we try to highlight the specific of people with cerebral palsy. And in natural disaster, we have accessible information on the availability, the services, and or during provision in specific support services. Next one, please. So we collected many items that show us most important for our population. So we separate in two different ways to look for them, as accessibility in shelters, water equipments, and medication. And the last one is particularly important. And another that concerns to the training staff. And this we can focus also in the preparedness, but for us, it's in the moment. So how to identify the CP using the tools that you have, the functional assessment, and how to support basic needs, as of course, medication, as I've already said. So the great difficulty to us was to understand how, if these guidelines or measures are applied, and if not, why and how we can collaborate for better access and guarantee the support for people with cerebral palsy. Because in our review, you can check in generalities that you can say they have a really good guidelines and orientations, and all these themes and issues that we bring to the table to discuss and looking for the response, they are contemplated in this document. So we have a good guidelines, but of course they are always general, so they don't see the cerebral palsy specific issues in this documentation, but in the general orientation, we can see all these items they discuss too. So for us, the most important here, and of course, the next speaker will show us exactly in practical, in these real situations, why this kind of measures and guidelines orientations are not put this as a thing that you can count on, or if there is what you can do to make this better. Next one, John, please. So here, just to let you know how important it is to be prepared for these kind of situations, because all these data that you can focus shows that it coming in a lot of increment for this data. So for the next years, we are waiting for more, specifically in this case, the natural disasters. So we have to get prepared, and of course, all this discussion can bring us better ways to make this response for people with cerebral palsy. Next one. So next one. So thank you very much. I hope you can discuss much more about this and have a good documentation for the next steps.